staying aware of awareness all day. You're only aware of awareness all day. To be given a practice, to be given any type of method to do that, it's like saying how to be aware of objects all day. Well, from the point of view of the separate self, that's the only thing that's being seen. So from the point of view of awareness, all there is awareness being aware of itself all day. You can't be aware of something other than awareness. So when we even ask the question as to how can I be aware of awareness all day, it's because we're told by a spiritual teacher, whether it's Eckhart Tolle, whether that's Rupert Spira, to be aware of being aware, to be aware of presence, to be aware of our being. And whereas this is, it's given in the context, and this is the thing, most people who are here trying to YouTube how to be aware of awareness all day, they're people who have just watched one of Rupert's or Eckhart's talks on YouTube out of context, who had little understanding as to what they were really talking about, or they misinterpreted the book. It's like a fly keeps flying in my face. Or they misinterpret the book. And they think, okay, so I've just got to be aware of awareness all day. And then what one tries to do is maybe they go on a walk and they think, oh, on this walk, I'm going to be aware of myself this whole walk. And they go on the walk, and just like I exactly did, I used to walk to my granddad's house and think, oh, I'm going to try and be aware of awareness the whole walk. And I'd go on the walk, and then I'd arrive at my granddad's, and I was like, I wasn't aware of myself the whole time. And then I would think, right, it's okay. On the way home, I will be aware of myself. The point is, you cannot just choose to be aware of awareness. It's not something we can go, oh, I'm going to train my mind to be aware of awareness all day. You can't do that. It's a complete misunderstanding. We're not here to just try to be aware of awareness all day. There's nothing we can do to make that something that is easier. We don't need to be aware of awareness. We are already aware of awareness. The goal is not to be aware of awareness. The goal is happiness, truth, peace, freedom. I don't give a frick what I'm aware of. If I'm at peace and happiness, I'm happy. I don't care. You see? I don't care if I'm aware of awareness. Do you think Rupert, do you think Eckhart Tolle, do you think the Buddha, do you think they were going around like being aware of awareness all day, making this effort to be aware of awareness? It's just nonsense. Of course they would. I'm perfectly peaceful and happy all of the time. And I don't give a crap about awareness. I don't care. It's like, what are you expecting to have? Like, what are you expecting from that? Because you can try and be aware of awareness as long as there is days on Earth, but you're still going to get triggered if you haven't uprooted the sense of separation. You see, you're still going to get, and that's not necessarily true. You can still get triggered in terms of you can still have residual tendencies arise, right? Residual habits. But for the most part, if you've removed your sense of separation, you won't be fearing death anymore. If you're not fearing death anymore, you won't be feeling, essentially, you won't be feeling fear anymore, right? And I've kind of gone through this in previous videos, but just to touch up on it, you will still experience some types of fear. For example, the earthquake I was in, one earthquake wasn't a serious earthquake, but my girlfriend, she was in a very serious earthquake. So we woke up. We woke up at the same time because the whole room was shaking, and there's a dodgy door on the cupboard, and it made a really loud noise, so it was even more crazy and kind of terrifying. And I was scared then, but I wasn't scared of the fear. You see, it was like a natural response. If I wasn't scared, I'd have gone back to bed. You see what I mean? Like if the body wasn't experiencing like adrenaline and things like that, I would have just gone back to sleep. And I've done that before when there's an earthquake. But my girlfriend was in the bed with me that time, and I felt her panic because she's very traumatized by that. So it triggered my response, you see? It triggered an appropriate response. And in that moment, also, there's a sense of protection for her. So there's natural mechanisms, but I'm calm and poised and my heart's beating, but it's all process. It's like there's a very healthy governing presence that is governing that experience. You see, there's no external panic, there's no resistance to it. It's very fluid. It's probably the healthiest fear you can have, because you need that aspect of fear, right? That's the fear that we've been conditioned with to preserve the body. So just being clear on that. But the internal fear, the fear of losing our identity, the fear of death, the fear of dying, these things are they're not there anymore. So when you recognize your true nature, you're synonymously recognizing happiness. You're recognizing that you are an absolute, pristine, causeless. To say being you're a causeless being, a causeless consciousness. And this causeless consciousness, it creates causeless joy in our lives. And this causeless joy is irrespective of whether we are being aware of being aware. When teachers say to focus on this metacognition, they mean it in a way that allows us to sink into our being. You see, it's a way of re-recognizing, so to speak, this absolute layer of what we are, which is absolute awareness, pure awareness, awareness without an object. And the experience of awareness without an object is basically no experience. It's not an experience, because all experience takes place in time and space, and all things in time and space are things. They are objects. And when we say experience, we're always referring to an object, because if there was no object, there would be no experience. However, the experience of awareness is an abstract experience, because it's a special experience. It's an experience of awareness, so it is something, but it's not an object. You see, so it's not an experience in the sense that we always have, and this is the reason for this is because when we're going about our day, there's the trauma of separation. So if we still believe that we are in a separate world with separate objects, and these are made of matter, and we're inside the body looking out at these separate objects, it's innate with separation. We've been brought up to believe that, and that creates a trauma of separation. So that means that this is why people can't meditate. This is why people think that they have to sit down and meditate and do all these things, because there's still the trauma of separation on the world. So they sit down, they close their eyes, and basically just forget that their body-mind exists. That is basically what people are doing. When they say they're meditating, what they're doing is they sat down and did nothing for so long and so often and so many times that eventually they start to forget that they actually exist as a body and a mind. And in that moment of forgetting everything, like if we've meditated for practice for a while, we've all had the experience, or at least we might have, where basically we forget literally what we're doing. We don't know what we're doing. And the teachings say to surrender to that forgetting and to just be with that, whatever's left over, right? We could say that's meditation. True meditation is to be fully aware of what that is, but so aware that then we don't need to, when we open our eyes again, we don't lose that. You see, we don't lose that. We're still experiencing that, but when the world takes shape. And the reason that we say be aware of awareness is because if we still have this trauma of separation, in other words, when we open our eyes and we see that there's a world, it pulls us back into it. We believe again that we are the separate object, because the world that appears, the Maya, the illusion, the mirage, whatever you want to call it, the Shakti, it implies separation. For example, if the Buddha's sitting there modern day typing on a keyboard, he's typing separate keys. If he wants to actively work in the world, he's typing on separate keys. Now, separate keys imply separation, which is why we have the belief in separation to begin with, because we just assume, well, because things seem separate, they must be separate. It implies separation, but it doesn't define and prove separation exists. So as we go through our awakening, we get to the point where we say, oh, okay, so there isn't separation. I get that intellectually, but the world still implies it. So what we think is, well, I still see separation, so I must be still egoic, delusional, I must still be an idiot, I must still be a separate self. But it's not necessarily the case. The world may still imply separation in order for us to type at all on the keyboard, in order for me to pour a cup of milk. I must therefore appropriate there is a separation between the milk and the cup. Because otherwise I wouldn't be pouring a cup of milk if there was no separation between a cup of milk and the milk, you see? So we're not supposed to remove the implication of, we're not supposed to remove the experience of what appears to be separate. That's perfectly legitimate experience. Time and space is a legitimate experience. Time and space implies objects. Objects imply something standing out apart from something, and therefore we define it as an object. So the point I'm making, and the importance of this, is to see very clearly that being aware of awareness is like a way of provisionally, or when teachers say that, it's a way of provisionally recognizing this absolute layer so that then the absolute seems more obvious in the world. So for example, right now, if I'm talking to you and there's a plant in the background, the plant is obvious, you see? But it's not fully obvious, but it is obvious. Now, if I put the plant closer to me, it's very obvious. You see, if I put the plant in my face, it's so close I cannot see what it is. So then it's so obviously there that it's not obvious at all. The truth is like this. Awareness is like this. It's always obvious, but there's degrees of that obviousness. And if we have still the trauma of separation built, which we are conditioned to believe there are separate objects and we're an individual self inside the body, then we will get sucked into the implications of duality. You see, we'll get sucked into the implications of a separate world. But what we need to see is that we're not a separate world, and we need to investigate as to how the world is not separate and how we are not confined inside the body. And the best way to do that, and it's pretty much only best to do this, and what I'll try and do is add something to this video. If I don't, forgive me. I do these in my community for free anyway, so you're not missing out if you join that. We have to see where we seem to be. If we are awareness, if we are this absolute layer of being that has no size, shape, form, color, cannot be touched, tasted, felt, heard, or seen, but is that which sees, hears, feels all things, we need to see then that where is that, and where are the things it apparently sees? And I'm giving you this provisional understanding because I'm not going to be able to help you with this on a YouTube video. I have to be with you directly on a call to help you with this. But what I'm showing you is the pathway. And the pathway is to see, well, where am I? If I am separate, where am I as a body and a mind? Where is the world that I apparently see? And is there proof that I actually perceive a separate object? We have to just strip it down to the facts. It's pretty simple. To be honest, it's actually common sense. Atmananda Krishnamanon calls this higher reasoning. It's common sense. Yes, it could be seen as higher reasoning, but honestly, it's just common sense. If you want to know if something is there, what do? You check to see if it's there. It's common sense. You don't need, it's not higher reasoning to do that. If you want to prove the validity of something, you check to see the validity of it. You just prove it if it's there or not, right? So if I want to prove the validity of this object being here, this microphone case, then I would have to say, what is there consisting of this object in order to prove whether it actually exists? Now, in order to do that, I have to remove my mind experiences from it. For example, everything we perceive a lot of it is a portion of our mind, right? Obviously, because it's our mind that's interpreting it. So we need to take away all the experience our mind creates and see what would be left of the object. The video is going to be too long for me to do this now, but like I said, I can do this in the community. I've got videos and meditations in the community, all for free. You can check those out. You can see where I do this. I've also done it in other videos. I'll add it as a link. And if the object doesn't appear as a result of that, how can we prove the validity of an object? And now we don't go to science with this. Science can't find objects. They've been trying for millennia. They can't find an object. They've been struggling their entire lives. You see, there's no objects. There's only the experience of awareness. Awareness creates the experience of objects. Awareness is the experience of objects. There is only awareness. So when it all comes down to it, instead of just trying to be aware of awareness all day and walking around like this little lamppost of awareness, trying to shine your awareness on yourself, see the world is already made of awareness. Know that, and then don't get sucked into the implications and the suggestions that the Maya, or the world, may present to you. For example, if I see a friend on the street, I'm not just going to sit there and think, oh my gosh, I'm an individual again, I'm going to suffer. It's just implicit in my nature to know both are true. This is a separate individual. This is I wouldn't say a separate, but this is an individual being. Right? If I didn't give them the respect to have that as well, I wouldn't speak to them. There would be no point. Why speak to something that isn't a separate being? It's like, why don't I speak to the tables and chairs? You see, because they're not a separate being, so to speak. But when someone appears, I'm going to give them the respect on that level that they are a separate being with their own experience, with their own life, with their own memories. That is credible enough to give someone the respect of being a separate individual, even though they're not ultimately a separate individual. I'm not just going to speak to them like they're me, this mind, you see? We have to have that wisdom. We have to have that level of compassion and just intelligence, right? And then we see that but that doing that is not going to cause ignorance in me, you see? This is what we have to learn. And likewise with the world. If I'm doing things in the world, it's not going to cause or trigger ignorance in me. That's the point. You see? It's not about just being aware of awareness. So I hope this was, or it is about being aware of awareness, but not in the way that you think it is. Okay? So like I mentioned, I've got a free community. I take people through these explorations every single week. If this is something that interests you, if you really want to embark into this, I want you to be there. I'm not just going to answer applications that are just like just one-word answers. You see, I do this for free. I want to work with people who are super interested. I'm not bothered with people who aren't that interested. You see what I mean? It works both ways. You invest your interest, I invest mine. You invest a nonchalant little one-word little thing, I'm probably not going to accept you. I'm just going to put that out there. So, yeah, have a beautiful day, guys. Take care. Bye.